Personal transformation often begins with a profound sense of discomfort that many people misinterpret as failure or regression. This feeling of being trapped in circumstances that no longer fit represents a crucial psychological signal indicating that growth is attempting to occur. Rather than viewing this discomfort as problematic, understanding it as a natural part of human development can help navigate the challenging process of personal change. The experience of feeling constrained by familiar patterns reflects what psychologists call cognitive dissonance, the mental discomfort that occurs when our current reality conflicts with our emerging sense of who we're becoming. This tension creates motivation for change, even when the process feels overwhelming or unclear. Human beings develop complex psychological systems that maintain consistency in behavior, beliefs, and self-perception. These systems serve important functions, providing predictability and reducing the cognitive load required to navigate daily life. However, they can also become rigid structures that limit growth when circumstances change or when personal development outpaces existing frameworks. The concept of psychological homeostasis explains why breaking established patterns feels so challenging. Our minds naturally resist changes that disrupt familiar functioning, even when those patterns no longer serve our best interests. This resistance isn't a character flaw, but an evolved mechanism designed to maintain stability and conserve mental energy. Consider how neural pathways strengthen through repetition. Each time we think a particular thought or engage in a specific behavior, the associated brain circuits become more established and automatic. This process, called neuroplasticity, works both for beneficial and limiting patterns. Negative self-talk, avoidance behaviors, and self-doubt can become deeply ingrained through the same mechanisms that establish positive habits. The interconnected nature of psychological patterns means that changing one element often triggers resistance throughout the entire system. A single insecure thought might activate physical tension, leading to behavioral avoidance, which then reinforces the original insecurity. These feedback loops create what psychologists call reinforcement cycles that maintain problematic patterns even when we consciously want to change them. Understanding this interconnectedness helps explain why willpower alone often fails to create lasting change. Attempting to suppress or ignore unwanted thoughts and behaviors without addressing the underlying system often leads to what researchers call the rebound effect, where suppressed patterns return with increased intensity. The computer operating system analogy illustrates how outdated mental programming can interfere with optimal functioning. Just as old software may contain bugs or inefficiencies that slow performance, established psychological patterns may include elements that were adaptive in past circumstances but create problems in current situations. However, unlike computer programs, psychological patterns cannot simply be deleted and replaced. They must be gradually modified through consistent practice of new behaviors and thought patterns. This process requires patience and self-compassion, as change typically occurs incrementally rather than dramatically. The feeling of being trapped in patterns we no longer want reflects what developmental psychologists call identity crisis, periods when our sense of self feels uncertain or conflicted. These experiences, while uncomfortable, often indicate that psychological growth is attempting to occur. The tension between who we've been and who we're becoming creates the energy necessary for transformation. Research on personal identity shows that healthy development involves periodic reevaluation and modification of self-concept. People who remain rigidly attached to outdated self-definitions may struggle to adapt to changing circumstances or achieve their evolving goals. Flexibility in self-perception, while sometimes anxiety-provoking, ultimately supports better psychological functioning. The process of recognizing and modifying limiting patterns begins with developing what psychologists call metacognition, awareness of our own thinking processes. This involves stepping back from automatic reactions and observing our mental patterns with curiosity rather than judgment. Mindfulness practices can be particularly helpful in developing this observational capacity. By learning to notice thoughts and emotions without immediately reacting to them, we create space for conscious choice rather than automatic response. This pause between stimulus and response is where personal agency resides. The dissolution phase of personal transformation can feel disorienting and uncomfortable because it involves letting go of familiar structures before new ones have fully formed. This experience parallels what researchers studying major life transitions describe as liminality, the threshold state between what was and what will be. During liminal periods, people often experience increased anxiety, confusion, and emotional volatility. These reactions are normal responses to uncertainty and change rather than indicators of pathology or failure. Understanding this can help normalize the discomfort and prevent premature abandonment of the growth process. The caterpillar metaphor, while poetic, requires careful interpretation when applied to human psychology. Unlike biological metamorphosis, psychological transformation rarely involves complete dissolution of existing structures. Instead, it typically involves gradual modification and integration of new elements with existing psychological frameworks. Research on identity development suggests that healthy change involves what psychologists call identity integration, incorporating new aspects of self while maintaining continuity with core values and characteristics. This process allows for growth while preserving psychological coherence and stability. The concept of ego death, from various spiritual and therapeutic traditions, describes temporary dissolution of familiar self-concepts, which can facilitate psychological renewal. However, this process requires careful navigation and appropriate support, as it can be destabilizing for individuals without adequate coping resources. Professional guidance can be valuable during intense periods of personal transformation, particularly when the process involves significant emotional distress or disruption of daily functioning. Therapists trained in developmental and humanistic approaches can provide support and perspective during challenging transitions. The vulnerability experienced during early stages of change reflects the temporary weakening of old coping mechanisms before new ones have fully developed. This psychological rawness, while uncomfortable, allows for greater sensitivity to internal guidance and authentic self-expression. Neuroplasticity research demonstrates that the brain continues forming new neural pathways throughout life, supporting the possibility of genuine psychological change at any age. However, this process requires consistent practice and patience, as new neural patterns need time to strengthen and integrate. The emergence of new psychological patterns often feels tentative and uncertain initially. Like learning any new skill, developing healthier ways of thinking and behaving requires practice and tolerance for imperfection. Expecting immediate mastery can lead to discouragement and abandonment of positive changes. Cognitive behavioral therapy research shows that changing thought patterns involves identifying automatic thoughts, examining their accuracy and helpfulness, and consciously practicing more balanced alternatives. This process takes time and repetition, but can lead to significant improvements in emotional well-being and life satisfaction. The concept of post-traumatic growth from psychology literature describes how challenging experiences can sometimes lead to positive psychological changes, including increased appreciation for life, stronger relationships, and enhanced personal strength. This research suggests that difficulty itself can be transformative when approached with appropriate support and perspective. However, it's important to note that struggle alone doesn't guarantee growth. The outcome depends on factors including available support systems, coping resources, meaning-making frameworks, and individual resilience. Some people may need professional help to navigate difficult transitions constructively. The integration phase of personal transformation, involves consolidating new insights and behaviors into stable patterns that can withstand stress and challenge. This requires ongoing attention and practice, as newly formed psychological structures need time to become as robust as the patterns they're replacing. Support systems play a crucial role in successful personal transformation. Relationships that encourage authenticity and growth can provide the safety and encouragement needed to risk changing familiar patterns. Conversely, relationships that reinforce limiting beliefs or behaviors can make change more difficult. Social psychology research emphasizes how our environment influences personal change efforts. Surrounding ourselves with people who model the qualities we want to develop and who support our growth aspirations can significantly improve the likelihood of successful transformation. The process of personal change often involves grieving aspects of our old identity, even when those aspects were limiting or problematic. This grief is natural and necessary, as letting go of familiar patterns means losing the predictability and comfort they provided, even if that comfort was ultimately constraining. Accepting the cyclical nature of growth can help maintain motivation during difficult periods. Personal development rarely follows a linear trajectory, but involves periods of expansion and consolidation, breakthrough and integration. Understanding this natural rhythm can prevent discouragement during temporary setbacks or plateaus. The role of self-compassion in personal transformation cannot be overstated. Research consistently shows that people who treat themselves with kindness during difficult periods are more likely to persist in positive changes and recover more quickly from setbacks. Self-criticism and harsh judgment typically undermine change efforts by creating additional stress and discouragement. Practical strategies for supporting personal transformation include regular self-reflection through journaling or meditation, seeking feedback from trusted others, experimenting with new behaviors in low-risk situations, and celebrating small progress rather than waiting for dramatic changes. Setting realistic expectations about the pace and nature of change helps maintain motivation while avoiding the discouragement that comes from unrealistic timelines. Most significant personal transformations unfold over months or years rather than weeks, and progress often occurs in subtle increments rather than dramatic leaps. The importance of meaning-making in personal transformation relates to our human need to understand our experiences within a coherent narrative. When we can frame our struggles and changes as part of a meaningful journey toward growth and authenticity, we're more likely to persist through difficult periods. However, it's crucial to distinguish between healthy meaning-making and problematic patterns of thinking that might indicate underlying mental health concerns. If someone begins experiencing significant disconnection from reality, grandiose beliefs about their transformation, or severe emotional distress that interferes with daily functioning, professional evaluation would be appropriate. The relationship between personal transformation and psychological well-being is complex. While growth often involves temporary discomfort, it should ultimately lead to greater life satisfaction, improved relationships, and enhanced coping abilities. If the process consistently leads to increased dysfunction or distress, seeking professional support would be advisable. Understanding personal transformation as a natural aspect of human development rather than a mystical or exceptional process can help normalize the experience and reduce unnecessary suffering. Most people experience multiple periods of significant change throughout their lives as they adapt to new circumstances, relationships, and life stages. The skills developed through navigating personal transformation, including self-awareness, emotional regulation, adaptability, and resilience, serve individuals throughout their lives and contribute to overall psychological health and well-being. These capacities can be cultivated through various means including therapy, mindfulness practices, meaningful relationships, and life experience. Cultural and societal factors significantly influence how personal transformation is understood and supported. Some cultures emphasize collective stability and conformity, while others celebrate individual growth and change. Understanding these contextual factors can help individuals navigate their transformation process within their specific social environment. The balance between accepting ourselves as we are while simultaneously working toward positive change represents one of the central paradoxes of human psychology. This balance requires developing the capacity to hold seemingly contradictory truths, that we are worthy of love and acceptance as we are, and that we also have the capacity and perhaps responsibility to grow and evolve. Professional mental health resources can provide valuable support during periods of significant personal change. Therapists, counselors, and support groups offer safe spaces to explore identity questions, process difficult emotions, and develop healthy coping strategies during transitions. The long-term benefits of successfully navigating personal transformation include increased self-awareness, improved emotional regulation, stronger sense of personal agency, more authentic relationships, and greater resilience in facing future challenges. These outcomes contribute to what psychologists call eudaimonic well-being, a deep sense of meaning and fulfillment in life. However, it's important to maintain realistic expectations about what personal transformation can and cannot accomplish. While significant positive changes are possible, transformation rarely eliminates all of life's challenges or guarantees permanent happiness. Instead, it typically provides better tools for navigating life's inevitable difficulties with greater wisdom and resilience. The process of personal transformation ultimately represents an expression of human potential, our capacity to learn, grow, adapt, and create meaningful lives despite challenging circumstances. Understanding this process through both psychological science and personal experience can help individuals navigate their own growth journeys with greater confidence and self-compassion. Recognition that discomfort during periods of change often signals growth rather than failure can help individuals persist through difficult transitions rather than abandoning positive change efforts prematurely. This perspective shift alone can significantly improve outcomes during challenging periods of personal development. The integration of scientific understanding with personal experience of transformation provides a balanced foundation for supporting both individual growth and helping others navigate their own change processes. This combination of knowledge and experience creates wisdom that can benefit both personal development and service to others facing similar challenges.